Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network to our After Further Review section. We got our football coaching expert, Coach Heisner. Coach, how you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing fine. Look like I'm about to have a house full of people for this game this weekend, so we're going to see how all that work out. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an excellent game. It looks like the weather is going to hold up, so we ought to have a pretty good crowd in terms of numbers, in terms of enthusiasm and crowd participation. I don't know how that's going to be because, like I say, I think sometimes both fan bases can leave a lot to be desired in the motivating of the team department.
Well, no doubt about it, but it is obvious, Coach, that it's put up or shut up for both the Jags and the Panthers. The person that comes out on the short end of the stick this week, in particular the case for Prairie View, man, can be a very detrimental-looking season, man.
Yeah, the team, I would say more Prairie View, if they end up coming on the short end of the stick of this game, they going to need a lot of help from somebody else. Southern, this is their first conference game, so they might, if they run the table, then they can still come out ahead because Prairie View will have 2 losses, and then if it comes down to them and Texas Southern, if they have beaten them head-to-head, that'll be a difference. Then, like you say, Southern still has to play Alcorn and Grambling and Texas Southern, so that's a lot. And then I really do think Pine Bluff is going to get in the act of eliminating somebody or putting somebody out of their misery, because I really do think they're going to end up with their offense beating a team that might underestimate what they bring to the table.
Yeah, that's always a factor, especially late in the season. I'm thinking about what Texas Southern was able to do to Alcorn, to discord, their little pleasant trip trying to get the postseason play. But when we look at the measures of the tape between the Jags and the Panthers this week, it's obvious that both teams are coming into this contest with huge question marks in the QB room.
Yeah, and I would say Southern more than Prairie View, because the simple reason that Prairie View's quarterback is a little more athletic. Coach Wheaton moves the pocket for.
Okay, it seemed like we lost Coach for a moment here. Coach, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we lost you just for a moment. You were saying it seemed like Coach Wheaton.
Well, Coach Wheaton gets his quarterback to the edge a little bit more, and the simple fact he's more athletic. The kid from Southern is more of a pocket pass. He can move if they end up starting Biden. He can move some, but not to the level of Prairie View's quarterback, Peters. But at the same time, and I'm not sure on the status of the TSEC kid from Scotland that started the Jackson State game, but I do think the edge in the quarterback play, in my opinion, goes to Prairie View if you're talking about moving them around. But if it becomes a game where Prairie View has to stop Southern's passing game, then they should be able to get pressure on him because they know where he's going to be, because he's middle of the pocket passer, but he can flick it on the run. That sucker got an arm, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, now when we look at where the game, in my opinion, is always won and lost, and that's in the trenches, how do you see the measure of the tape between these offensive and defensive lines from both squads?
Well, I think it's going to be sort of tit for tat, because Prairie View is more of a 3-man front, and they'll bring in 4. Southern is more of a 4-2-5 front, where they're going to keep 4 defensive linemen pretty much in the game, even on some long passing yard situations. Southern's defensive end is preseason player of the year, but the thing is he's not a big kid, so Southern is going to have to pretty much shut down the running game so he can get involved in his pass rush move. But he's a kid with a high motor, the defensive end from Southern. Prairie View's defensive line, I say, is maybe a little bit more solid, a little bit more team-oriented, where they're not going to have anybody that's just going to pop off the page or the film at you. It's going to be a group effort of keeping the quarterback in the pocket and making them make mistakes in the passing game. But I think it's going to be a lot of 8-man boxes and try to force both of these quarterbacks into a throwing contest.
Okay. Beat me with your arm more than your legs, right?
Yeah, but like I say, Peters can beat you with his legs. Biden can hurt you. So it's like I say, it's a difference between getting beat and getting hurt. So, but I do think Peters is going to has a little bit more, as they say, escapability, if that's the word.
Yes, sir. Now, Coach, you're coming in week 3 right now. What should you be expecting this part of the season that you know that's pretty much not tolerable in comparison to the first couple of weeks?
Well, both teams, I think, get a little bit too many pre-snap penalties. I think I watched the Southern versus Jackson State game, and I want to say I saw at least 4, 3 on the offensive side, 1 on the defensive side of the ball. Prairie View, I saw 2, I want to say, at least, where maybe a guy had a false start or something like that. So I think the biggest thing you want to do, you're going to have the holding calls. You want to eliminate personal fouls, what we call pre- and post-snap penalties. So the pre-snap, the offside, the false starts, the illegal formations, and then you want to eliminate the personal fouls, because I was watching Southern game at a crucial moment against Jackson State. Southern got a stop, and then one of their linebackers hit Jackson State quarterback out of bounds on their sideline, and 9 times out of 10, if you're on the opposing team sideline, you're going to get that call. And that kept Jackson State on the field, and then they went down and scored and sort of extended the lead. So you got to hope you eliminate pre- and post-snap, but you're going to get the occasional holding call. You're going to get the occasional face mask. But you don't, man, those pre- and post-snap penalties change a whole lot.
Well, Coach, when we talk about it, and it's been an Achilles heel for the Panthers for quite some time now, and it was, I guess, more accented under Coach Dooley, and it's really been the difference maker in some of the games in times past. I know we say the student athlete got to show discipline, the coaches got to show, control of these guys. But who does this really fall on?
Like I say, I'm a coach's kid. My dad coached Little League football, for whatever that's worth. So I have never been a person to blame stuff on the coach. A lot of times I say it's the man in the arena, because they're the one making the mistakes. Now, I would propose or ask fans, the coach in the stands, sort of, how do you fix that? Now, you could run guys, you could punish them, discipline them, however you want to think of it. But we have emphasized, and I know coaches emphasize, the pre-snap penalties in particular. How do you eliminate those when a defensive lineman, one game they call it where the defensive lineman moves, there's a penalty on defense. I've seen in the same game where the defensive lineman did a shift, the first quarter they call a penalty on the defense. The third quarter they call a penalty on the offense. So it's different things like that that make me say, man, what are the rules per se? But at the end of the day, the false starts, in my opinion, that's a player-driven penalty. The problems, the pass interference and stuff like that, that's more technique and coach-driven to me. But like I say, I've always been it's a man in the arena type of thing because of who my dad was. Okay.
Now, in certain cases, like you said, especially when it comes to pass interference, if I see my receiver's about to beat me and I'm a DB, I'm just going to go in and tackle. I'll just take the 15 and give up the 6. I don't have a problem with that at all. But like you said, it seems like it's at critical times when it's, like you say, a big third down, you're about to get the rock back, and then you can't keep composure, or you take it so personal that you forsake the benefit of the team to get your own personal satisfaction.
Yeah, you know what? And after watching some games and watching my son get a personal foul, luckily it was the first down. It was on the kickoff. But I look at it like it is a life skill that these young men need to develop. It's bigger than football, especially when you can't control your emotions by pushing somebody, by spitting on somebody, by a late hit that's clearly out of bounds, or you think you being aggressive, but you only hurting your team. That is a life skill that guys need to understand, that I have to find a way to keep my emotions in control no matter what the situation. And like I say, I had to learn that I would say the hard way, because there a fan may say something to me that really, I would say the younger coach Northern would want to, hey man, this is where my office is. You can meet me over there and we can handle this. Meet me over here in the parking lot. We can get dirty if you want to. But at the same time, I have to think, like, how is this going to affect everybody around me? Am I going to embarrass my wife and kids? Am I going to embarrass the university? So that is a skill that I think that skill can be taught when you're dealing with emotions, whether it's through counseling, whether it's through teamwork drills, or when you punish the whole group for a mistake that somebody else did, that may make that person think, I can't afford to get my homeboys in trouble, or make my homeboys, my teammate, the linebacker room have to do push-ups, or have to meet the coach at 6:30 in the morning at the stadium because I got a personal foul, or because I got a second personal foul on the season. So I think that can be sort of, like I say, broken from a person more so than the technique stuff can be broken. It's all about emotion.
Yes, sir, no doubt about it. Talking with Coach Heiss Northern upon further review this week, we're talking about Prairie View and Southern, but we got another very intriguing match, at least to me, Coach, and that's Jackson hosting the Grambling State Tigers. Now, I got to ask this question, Coach, and I promise you I'm not trying to be funny. Was Jackson that good, or was Southern that bad last week?
A combination of both. Jackson O-line, man, you could look at some plays, and my wife asked me, she saw me watching the game yesterday, actually. So she saw me watching the game from a coach's standpoint. And she was like, are you just trying to make yourself miserable by watching this game over? And I'm watching, and Coach, I'm looking at the film or the game, and on some plays, Jackson State had pancaked both for Southern's defensive tackles. Jackson State was beating them off the ball. I could see Southern, and I know Southern's defense like the back of my hand. I'm looking at certain plays, the defensive linemen were in the wrong gap because Jackson State offensive line was getting off the ball so fast and what we call reaching them or scooping them, which made it hard on the linebackers. And there were some plays, I think Southern just misaligned. The defensive end was lined up too tight and wasn't able to keep contained. So, and then Southern missed. I saw one play, they missed a tackle 5 yards in the backfield, and a guy ended up getting, it was a 13-yard plus minus on that play. On one of the touchdowns that Jackson State scored, I want to say it was about a 35 to 40-yard touchdown. Southern defender was one-on-one with Jackson State tailback, and he missed the tackle, and nobody else was there to make the play. Another play, the safety from Southern pointed at his man, and then Jackson State did a play action. Southern safety had bad eye discipline, the tight end running wide open down the field for a touchdown. So it was a combination of Jackson dialed up some of the right plays. Southern didn't do a good job attacking. And Jackson State offensive line, they came with something on their mind. They were like, and then Jackson did a lot of it with their second-string quarterback playing.
Well, we'll see how it comes out. I was really, really a little disappointed in the Jags' performance. I was expecting a little bit more. Even though it was 33-15, it wasn't even that close when you looked at it and paid attention to it. How do you see Grambling matching up to the task of trying to take on Jackson?
Well, I think Jackson's offense, Gramblin's offense is going to match up better because even though they are playing in a different offensive system, Coach Dooley's offense, in my opinion, is not a hard offense to master because the play terminology is not very long, and it's a lot of, I'm not going to say simple reads, but it's a lot of reads that everybody does. But he does simplify it to like, all right, you're going to read inside out, you're going to read high-low, and Miles Crowley, who's the preseason offensive player of the year, is a veteran quarterback, where Southern went in there with a guy that was making his first start as a starter, and then they went in there, their backup was a guy that had started a total of 2 games, where Crowley has a couple years of starting under his belt. I think that can be a difference maker.
Okay. Now, Coach, you had referenced not long ago about the continued witnessing of poor tackling. And I know we say we only have so many days to work on so many deals, but I'm seeing this gradually, and people think because I'm old school, but I see that more teams, even on the pro level, they're starting to slightly come back to the middle, if you would, with more rushing attempts and attack and emphasis on the run game. What can you do? I know tackling, the more you tackle, the better you become at tackling. But how can you get tackling in? Because I'd rather be a sure tackle, and I know you got to understand the scheme, but it ain't no sense in running the scheme, and once I get there, I can't bring them down.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the biggest thing is going back to before the tackle. What is your footwork? And I'm gonna tell you what I tell my son: how to tackle bigger people. The biggest thing is step on their toes. That's what I teach. Get to them, step on their toes, and wrap up. Now the problem comes in with some people teach head across tackling. Some people teach head behind because that lessens the chance of a whiplash or concussion. Mm-hmm. But it also, if you're going against a big guy, it's hard to bring a bigger guy down if you teach head behind tackling, if you're not rolling with the tackle. If you, like some people call it an alligator tackle, where you grab, you pull the legs close, and you roll and spin, basically try to use that person's momentum against them. So there's a couple of different technique things. Now, you can work on the technique, do angle tackling. That's real big. Open field tackling without bringing a guy to the ground. But the biggest thing, like I said, and this is what I tell my son, hey, man, you don't have to be a killer, but your responsibility to those other 10 guys on the field is to simply get that guy to the ground, whether you grabbing jersey, shoestrings, belt loop, the sweet rag towel, whatever you got to do, you got to find a way to get that joker to the ground. And I talk about this with him as well, what we call funnel tackling, where if I got a guy in close proximity to other people that's around me, that's when I can go and try to knock his helmet off. But if it's open space, my job is to make that joker chop his feet, get him to the ground, and hope my teammates, like they say, hope the cavalry is on the way, just to get him to the ground and live to see another day.
Yes, sir. Once again, talking with Coach Heiss Northern, Open Mic Broadcast Network. Upon further review or after further review, I hope you like that name too, Coach. I just kind of thought it would be a good fitting for this segment.
Yes, sir.
Coach, we take pride in being informative and educating people, and every now and then, those who are used to the terminology of A gaps, B gaps, the 3 position, the 7 position, can you give a quick, data update to some who might not understand what's the A gap, between the A gap or the 9 or the 3 position?
All right. Well, I'll to make it easy. So you looking at the center has the ball on his right leg and his left leg. There's a gap between the center and the guard. That's what pretty much everybody in the country calls the A gap, whether it's the strong side or the weak side. Then the gap between the guard and the tackle, everybody in the country pretty much calls it the B gap. So the gap between the tackle and the tight end, most people call that the C gap, and then outside the tight end, most people call it the D gap, or they may say 8 or 9. So it just depends on the terminology that you use. I think it may be a little bit, all right, so most people are going to say, and that's from the offensive side of the ball, but as a defensive coach, I may tell my nose guard, you're responsible for the A gap no matter how big that gap is. The 3 technique, which is usually, I'm going to say, he's on the outside leg of the guard on either side of the ball. That's what we call a 3. And then if you're on the outside of the tackle, we call it a 5. If you're outside the tight end, we call it a 9. So the gaps are numbered for defensive purpose: 1, 3, 5, 9. The crazy thing is the 7 is the inside of the tight end. The 8 is head up on the tight end, and some people may call it even a 6. And then the 9 is the outside of the tight end. So just to try to make it as simple as possible, that's what most people is: an A gap run, B gap run, C gap run, or D gap. So that's the simplest way that I can put it. And then when you get into the blocking scheme, you pretty much need a chalkboard, a whiteboard to do that. But I can explain to most people. Everybody know A, B, C, D. Just start at the center and count a gap until you get to the last man on the line of scrimmage. So, and I'll take this. So a while back, a lot of people don't know this. So I interviewed for a job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Monty Kiffin was there. And then I turned around when Lane Kiffin got the job at Tennessee. I interviewed with Lane. His dad was a defense coordinator. Coach Ogeron was the defense line and recruiting coach. So I got on the phone with Lane Kiffin and explained to him, some things that we talked about football-wise from a defensive standpoint. I still was at Prairie View at the time. Then I go fly up to Tennessee before the coaches convention and get on the board with him. So he asked me, didn't know much about me, and he said, "Hey man, like what is your major? What did you get your degree in?" So I said, math education. He said, "Oh, it makes sense." He says, "I can tell you had something, either marketing or education in your background, by the way that you explain things to me over the phone. I can see exactly what you're saying." He said also when you got to the chalkboard, you were writing stuff on the board while pretty much still looking at me holding conversations. But the crazy thing about it, a guy, do you know who John Montgomery is?
Yes, I don't know him personally, but I know who he is, yeah.
So John Montgomery, who's a Prairie View grad, was my office mate at my very first college job at Morehouse College. John and I, because I was the youngest coach on the staff, and John's wife worked in the cafeteria at Morehouse. John would get me in the office pretty much at 6:30 in the morning. He said, "Go to the board." And he would make me write stuff on the board. And he taught me, like, "Oh, no, that's too junky. No, this needs to look like this. It needs to be in a straight," because when I would write, my writing would tail off. So a guy from Prairie View that I feel like I learned as much in 1 year from that guy as I probably learned from any other football coach I ever worked with, taught me how to get on the board and draw up plays from an offensive and a defensive standpoint, and how to present it. He's like, "Man, you don't know who you're going to be in front of, but that one chance that you get on the board with a guy can leave a lasting impression." And like you say, it goes back to being able to explain stuff and draw it on the board so people can understand what are you talking about. And yes, sometimes I go a little bit into too much detail when I'm teaching football and not just working on the play, because I'm going to tell you where that play came from and how it's supposed to look and all that type of stuff as well.
Yes, sir. Well, it's definitely changed from my day, because anything to the right, it was 2, 4, 6, or 8 hole. and you knew where you were. And on the left, it was 1, 3, 5, 7. And times bring about a change. All I knew, any odd numbers, they was going left. Any right or even numbers, they was going right. But it's crazy how things evolve, and then all the language, the zebra hitch, and all this, that, and the other. And I guess it's all about being deceptive, which I really don't have a problem with people stealing signals or whatever, because while you're busy trying to see what my signal is, you still got to stop me.
And that's the big thing. You still got to, you can know what's coming, but you still have to stop it. Let me ask you a question. Did you watch the Falcons versus Eagles game?
Yes, and I'm gonna say this, Coach. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna leave it alone because we all look hindsight 2020 now. While the game is going on, everybody can coach from the living room chair, right?
Yeah.
But football 101, you've been dominating the run game forever and a day.
Mm-hmm.
You're up by 3. You're in guaranteed field goal range the way these kickers are doing so far. Why are you going to risk throwing the ball? If you want Barkley to touch the rock, let him run it. It's 3rd and 3. And even if you go up back like you're going to do the tush push, let the clock run down and take a timeout and then kick a field goal to give them less time. And then they went and let the man pick them apart on defense.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that question, because I watched the game as a defensive coach. I had no doubt in my mind that they were going to throw the ball in that situation, because I don't think people don't realize how hard it is to rush for 3 or 4 yards when everybody in America know you have to run the ball. So that call didn't surprise me at all, that they went and threw the ball to their best player. So that's why I asked. It didn't surprise me at all, but like I say, I would have been expecting it, because like I say, trying to run when you're free safety and you're strong safety really don't have to cover anybody. All they got to do is follow the tailback to the ball, which they didn't do a good job of, by the way. So, like I say, I was expecting pass all day.
But Coach, you have no timeouts.
Yeah.
You have no timeouts. We're at 1 minute and 40 some odd seconds.
Yeah.
Then even if you stop me, I don't care if you stop me. I just want the clock to keep running. So then if you tackle me and say it takes, we're gonna say it's 1 minute 40 left. It takes 4 seconds to run a play, 5 seconds. We'll say 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I can let the clock run down. If it's at, let's say, a minute 40, a minute 35, that clock runs down to under a minute. I take a timeout, okay, and then do what I need to do.
Yeah, I understand that, but I used to always write this on my play call sheet. 4th and less than 5, bootleg is a great call. I used to write that down all the time. I could pull out call sheets from when I was at Prairie View, Brookshire Royal, wherever, and I used to write that down. 4th and less than 5, bootleg to the field is a great call.
Okay.
Or even sometimes, like say, 3rd and late. If I had a real good tight end, great call, dragging that tight end from the short side all the way back to the wide side of the field. Great call.
Bootleg, but you ain't got to throw it on a bootleg neither.
You don't have to, yeah. And that's another thing. Could they have told Jalen Hurts, we going to run this play, but you don't throw that ball to anybody. We just trying to get you to the edge. But, like they say, sometimes when you see a joker that make $20 million a year wide open, man, what more can you ask for as an offensive play call?
I understand.
But I understand the clock portion of it too.
Yes, sir. But and they getting paid millions of dollars, and you making decisions like that. I'm like, oh well, and then give credit to Atlanta because they took advantage of the opportunity, made them pay for it, man.
And the thing about it, them jokers that made that call, they direct deposit still hit on Tuesday morning, so they ain't too much worry about it.
Well, Coach, it's really going to be some exciting times. It looks like can't get too premature. You made mention of Morehouse and the possibility of Virginia State could be relocating to the MEAC. Man, what do you think when you hear that? And they even talked about there's whispers that Hampton and North Carolina A&T might be looking at coming back home.
Hey, man, like I say, sometimes going back home ain't a bad thing. So I would like to see those guys back in the MEAC. The Morehouse, Virginia State thing, man, they better make sure they did some great planning. And like I say, I worked at Morehouse. I visited Virginia State this summer while Adam was at camp at North Carolina A&T. So I think they have a pretty good setup. There's some things that, like I say, if I was coaching up there, I would ask for before we moved up, because obviously they're going to have to upgrade some facilities. Their facilities look a lot like Prairie View's, maybe on a smaller scale, before they built the field house. They're gonna have to expand the locker room. They're gonna have to expand for the visiting team. So it's some things like that Virginia State is gonna have to do. Morehouse, I think eventually they're gonna have to put some turf down and probably put a field house. I don't know if they still had a space in the end zone. The last time I was there, they had the space. But the thing about Morehouse, and I hope they have changed since the last few coaches that I know have been there, that is not the most athletically friendly university. Their pride is we get the top 25%, or we get 25% of the smartest black men or high school students in the United States, and they come here to follow the legacy of Spike Lee, Dr. Martin Luther King, Edward Moses. So they are not very high on the athletic part of the university. So they're going to have to make some changes and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. They're in a great place. You got an all-girls campus right across the street. You in the city of Atlanta. A lot of movers and shakers in the city of Atlanta have ties to Morehouse College. So I think if they do move up, that'll be a good move for them. And I think it would be a good move for the SWAC, because now, even though they play the Celebration Bowl there in the SWAC MEAC Challenge, now you have some roots that say, look, the SWAC is here in Atlanta, and when you have some if you move the championship game there instead of off campus, now you have like I say, you got a foothold. Now, the only thing about it, and I don't know if you've ever seen Morehouse Stadium, it is a one-sided stadium. So they don't have a visitor side. Everybody sits on the same side when you go to a game. So that may be another thing. But the thing about it, man, them jokers got some money over there. That's, to put it lightly.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you thinking Morehouse would be interested in coming to the SWAC?
I would think so. If they gonna move up, I would think the SWAC would. Oh man, I would say the SWAC would be a better move than the MEAC. If I was the SWAC, I would try to tap into Morehouse joining us than letting. I'm saying letting them, but letting them go to the MEAC. I would try to tap into that Atlanta foothold as opposed to letting them go up to the North Carolinas, the Morgan States, and all that.
Okay,
but now it makes more sense to them to go there. But if I'm the SWAC, I'm trying to entice them to come west instead of going north.
Even if they didn't have a traveling partner coming with them.
Even if they don't, we'll figure that out later. Look, the way it's going now is not evenly matched anyway, and then you still have teams like Jackson played Southern last week. That's not a conference game. Jackson playing Grambling this week. That doesn't count as a conference game. So you can still end up with some games like that, even though one side will have more than the other. Then you just go back to percentages on wins, because that's like to me the next tiebreaker.
Okay, well, I definitely was under the impression. I thought Grambling and Jackson would have counted. It will count, but it won't count. But we learn more and more each day. But anyway, which is why we should get going and play the 9 games, 10 games anyway, and be done with it. But I won't digress from that.
Yes, sir.
When we look at everything that's lining up, you was talking about the facilities. I had an idea, and I like bouncing stuff off of you, so here we go. I don't have a problem with that one-sided stand, right? But with everybody into streaming and television these days, flip that thing. Just build your field in reverse, okay? I would have student sections and band sections in the end zones. Then everybody sit on that one side. So even when you have a televised game, if it's not that many people there, it won't look like it's not that many people there.
Yeah. So the other thing that I want to say, they did put maybe the band in the end zone for some homecomings and stuff before. The students stayed in the stands because, like I say, Morehouse homecoming is probably more people outside, like way more than, like, say, people complain about Prairie View homecoming, about people not coming in the game. If you go to Morehouse, there's even more people outside than inside the game. Like, they don't even know who they playing and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's just come back. They donate big money for homecoming. But at the end of the day, I think that could be an idea because, you know what? When I was there, they played, I think this was like whatever the women's basketball league was before the WNBA. When they would host games, they would make everybody sit on one side of the gym and set the TV people up on the opposite side of the gym. And when Morehouse played certain schools in basketball, they would do the same thing. Everybody would sit behind the team and the coaches, and they would film from what technically would be the opposite side of the gym to make the gym look packed. And it would be some nice crowds, but if you would know that nobody was sitting on the opposite side of the gym over there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because we talk about TV is to promote your brand, right?
Yeah.
And you're not promoting your brand when you have a 20,000 seat stadium and you got 12,000 people there, but can't nobody see them.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to say, we always say I'm in agreement with that. I can go with that situation right there.
Yes, sir. Well, we're gonna go with the situation, man, and I'm not gonna put you on the spot on picking a winner this week between Prairie View and Texas Southern. I'm sorry, the Southern, but I will put you on the spot. Who you think gonna win between Grambling and Jackson?
Man, I really think this gonna be a shootout. To be honest, I think this gonna be a first team of 35 gonna win that game.
35.
I think it's gonna be some points put up. And the reason why I say it's going to be some points put up, both of those schools' secondary, I would say leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of personnel. And then, but Jackson, to me, looking at the film, they did a good job of confusing what they were doing on defense. Disguise. They would be dropping 8 sometimes. Man, they played a bear front sometimes where it's just straight man across the board. They played some cover 2 read. They played some lineup in cover 2, drop to cover 3. So, but at the same time, if I'm knowing what Coach Dooley is going to do on offense, he's going to simplify the reads and for his quarter and try to establish the running game, which I think as long as they're not in that bear front, that means every offensive lineman is covered, and they have one guy sitting in the middle that can run from sideline to sideline. Like, to me, that's old school Jackson State football.
Mm-hmm.
Just playing cover 1 and let the free safety go where he don't have to stay back. He can just run to the ball.
We used to call that the monster defense.
Yes, that's what some people call it, the old monster. So if they can play that monster and Grambling can still run the ball, then I think that's going to get in the blues. But at the same time, if they play that monster that's going to leave the slot receiver open against the safety. We call it a slot fade. Everybody in America run it, where you see the number 2 receiver run a go route, and then he leaves enough space so he can fade and catch the ball close to the numbers of the sideline. So if they play that against Grambling, like you say, Grambling got some frisbee catching puppies over there that can go get that ball for Crawley.
Well, we'll be ready to talk about it in full detail on next week, Coach. You'll be doing the game for us this weekend, man, and I know your family going to be in. So I want you to have a great time, man. Eat plenty of good food, and everybody come back healthy.
Yes, sir.
All right, he is Coach Heiss Northern, football coaching guru, soon to be back on the sideline. Can't y'all hear it, folks? Can't y'all feel it? Soon to be back on the sideline, and hopefully don't forget about us small folks over here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Don't forget, you can join in with us on our YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Subscribe today. Follow me on Twitter X at The Mike Prince Show. Visit the website obnradio.com for our 24-hour stream. And we're going to slide to the left right now because our time is up. Until the next time, you guys be blessed. We'll see you on the other side.